Our scripture today starts with Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade in your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore. Second reading is 1 Samuel chapter 7, verses 7 through 12. When the Philistines heard that the Israelites had gathered at Mizpah, the lords of the Philistines went up against Israel. And when the Israelites heard of it, they were afraid of the Philistines. The Israelites said to Samuel, "Do not cease to cry out to the Lord our God for us, and pray that he may save us from the hand of the Philistines." So Samuel took a suckling lamb and offered it as a whole burnt offering to the Lord. Samuel cried out to the Lord for Israel, and the Lord answered him. As Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to attack Israel. But the Lord thundered with a mighty voice that day against the Philistines and threw them into confusion, and they were routed before Israel. And the man of Israel went out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines and struck them down as far as beyond Beth-kar. Then Samuel took a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Jeshanah and named it Ebenezer. For he said, "Thus far the Lord has helped us." Thus ends our reading for today.
Friends, will you join me in prayer? Gracious and loving and holy God, may our words and our reflections be a blessing to you this day and every day and always. Amen. For this season and series, we've been reflecting on Cole Arthur Riley's book, This Here Flesh. And there was a secondary source we were using, kind of, you just didn't know. And Pastor Katie there's a website, it doesn't matter. And she had grouped some of the chapters of the book together. She had more weeks than we did. And so I thought we could easily group rest and memory together. I thought of them as passive experiences. Because rage and lament and fear felt like they had energy about them, they made sense to go together. Even repair in the context of forgiveness and reparation has movement. But rest and memory seemed, on the surface, much more like a pause, much more like stillness, much more passive. But of course, rest is not passive for someone with anxiety. And remembering is not passive for someone whose memory is starting to fade. Now, rest is not easy. We live in a time and a culture where the priority is work and doing, where hustling and side hustles and second hustles are the ideal. And resting makes you seem lazy or not working towards your goals and a waste of time. And I know some of you here are not working with employment, not working the grind anymore. But I almost have never heard anyone who is retired say, we just have so much free time now. Everyone seems to be just as busy, if not more busy, than they ever were before. Maybe you know someone who has said, you can sleep when you're dead. And then, in fact, worked themselves into that reality. When I was working at a restaurant, we were told, if you can lean, you can clean. And in some households, that is the same idea. That is the ideal and expectation that some have for their children, that if you are doing nothing, you could be doing your homework. Why don't you clean your room? Why don't you go outside? I don't think we're taught well to rest. And all of that assumes a conversation and the luxury and privilege of being able to rest. That rest is in fact even an option. That retirement is something that can be afforded. Maybe working 8 hours and sleeping 8 hours and other things for 8 hours is a possibility. Those who seem to work 40, but there are those who seem to work 40 hours in a day just to make ends meet. And there is a justice issue here, questions we should be asking. Are our lives built for work, or is our life supposed to make our living well and abundant? Of course, I would say the latter. Cole writes in our Black liturgy books, where all of our prayers are coming from, there is a reason you can't bring yourself to close the laptop, to walk away from your work, to close your eyes. How terrifying might rest appear to a woman who is working 3 jobs to pay her rent, to those who fear homelessness or hunger or punishment, even if they do not produce for these toxic systems. We belong to a society that claims ownership over our bodies, that across generations has used our bodies for its own ends. Our petitions for rest cannot be grounded in self-help wellness talks that don't recognize this reality. I think the fear of not having something is, there are those for whom it is really clear. The working to put food on your table and a roof over your family's head. It can also be a little insidious for those who have the resources. If I take a break or a vacation, will my boss be mad? Will they realize they don't actually need me? If I don't do more than is expected, if I do just enough, or what is just required of me and no more, if I don't do 3 people's jobs, will they find someone else? Of course, if you do 3 people's jobs, you will never advance in your career because you are now indispensable. But that's a different justice issue. What if I don't? Our lives and our bodies become part of the grind. There are a reason that so many nurses and teachers and honestly pastors left. Not just companies or organizations, they left whole professions, particularly during COVID, but other times too. That there is a grind that doesn't care about rest or wellness or living abundantly. Cole writes, I have to believe that if we didn't need to protect ourselves, we wouldn't be prone to avoiding rest. Fear and protection. These are the weapons of the empire that keep us afraid and keep us isolated and keep us grinding on. Tricia Hersey started what is called the NAP ministry, particularly for people of color, for Black women who, however, abundantly tend to work more and are expected to work more. And sometimes you just need a nap. They get together and have naps. It's a great Instagram if you want to follow. This is not in my sermon part, so just saying, take a look. But she wrote a book, and she has a deck of cards that I have abandoned somewhere. Invites us and asks us, what does it serve me to navigate life by myself? The lie of individualism keeps us separated, isolated, exhausted, and disconnected. Without collaborating in rest and care, we will not make it. We need one another in order to make it. The invitation is to be curious about the ways you can connect and care with others while on your rest journey. Without each other, perhaps we would not remember to rest. This is from the Nap Ministry. We would question our value or worthiness to rest. Have I done enough? Am I worthy of rest? We would teach our young people that always moving and always doing is more important than the rhythms of rest and play. When we rest and play, when we sleep, we regenerate. Our cells begin a sacred rhythm of repair and release. And when we wake, we are more whole, less inflamed, more aware. And of course, when we sleep, that we might dream. And in that dreaming, we might together imagine a future of wellness and abundance for all. And we might imagine ways to live that out together. Community, connection, collaboration is vital to rest. It is vital for our care to one another, and it is vital to our memory. Our memory is stories. Some of them are stories we've experienced ourselves, and some of them are passed down to us. And some live in our bones, even if it's generations old and we don't know the words to the story at all. And stories are meant to be told and shared and stewarded. How many stories of those without power have been lost because they weren't told and retold and passed on? And how many stories were saved down generations around gatherings of fires and around kitchen tables? I think we often hold on to memories as if they are our own, as if they only live in us and they are only ours to care for. What if? What if we imagined memory differently, and we imagined it as something that we share, and we hold collectively, and we steward together? In our Bible story today, Samuel, I don't remember what comes next, Samuel erects a large stone that would stand as a reminder that God had protected them, had kept them safe, so they didn't have to hustle and grind to be safe. God protected them. Stones were raised as reminders throughout the scriptures, and they often came with a command or request that you would, when you walk by with your children and they ask, why is that stone there? That you would tell them the story. The story of how God protected the people, the story of reconciliation, the story of meeting God in a particular place. And in that way, well, the story might have been you raised the stone and put it there, their children's and their children's children, and every generation tells the story when they walk by the stone and remember. The stones then become artifacts. Cole writes, for those of us who are trying to carry all our memories on our own and pass them clumsily from one to another, we must learn to create our own artifacts, sacred items of story and existence that have once been denied to us. An artifact is a little piece of defiance to say, I was here, I existed, and this thing happened, whether you believe it or not. Of course, like our memories, sometimes artifacts are things that we just hold on to and we collect. So many of them for some of us that they clutter our shelves until we give them to a rummage sale. Each one of them, though, a memory. And sometimes we fail to tell the story that goes with each memory. Sometimes we fail to tell the story that is connected to them. It is our artifacts, but it does not hold on to the story. It reminds us, and it reminds us to tell it again and again. And when we pass on a memory, when we share a story, when we pass on a memory and we share a story, when we have an artifact and we pass it by telling the story to our children and our grandchildren, so often that they are able to tell the story to their grandchildren, and we tell the story to each other, then this family of Christ can be stewards of that memory together, a collective memory. That each in it, the collective memory, cares for each other, reminds each other, and tells the story no matter what else is happening. Cole tells a story. She writes, when my friend's father, who has Alzheimer's, forgets a face or loses his place in time, I have always found it so tender that my friend does not immediately correct him. Sometimes he'll just stay with his father in whatever memory he is able to occupy. This is solidarity. And other times, he'll choose one or two details to bring into focus at a time. You're a good dad. You make the best French toast. Memory is fragile. It requires a delicate touch and a tenderness. Even those of us who are not prone to forgetting need this. Sometimes. It is only in the hands of another that a memory can be fully encountered. All of a sudden, it is not from the front of the car that you see, but from the street. But the street from the back window, the memory expands past 2 dimensions. This is the beauty of collective memory. And I think we could go back to that invitation of Tricia Hersey's with a little different, that we might be curious about the ways you can connect and care and collaborate with each other on your memory journey. Because how can we be stewards for each other and care for one another and support rest, that we might dream and hold stories and raise stones of remembrance and to tell and to hear their stories. So then maybe rest and memory aren't passive at all. Maybe they are active and they are energy and they flow, and that we need to put that energy and action into them as well. May we find ways of creating that space together. Friends, we're going to take a couple of minutes, a little like rest. I thought they were cute. I was looking for generations of telling stories. Anyway, we're going to take a couple of minutes of quiet, of reflection, of rest. Perhaps you have things at home that are carriers of your own memories. Some of these are mine. Some of them are rummage items. I could come up with a story for them anyway. What are the stories that you want to share? Are there items, artifacts that remind you of them? Can you tell your neighbor later today? Can you support each other in rest? We'll take a couple minutes. It's okay, I'm timing it so it won't go too long.
Amen.